This is Rakai Steed, Newt from the Ville, here to talk to you about Doctor Who, Season 9, Episode 2, The Witch is Familiar. But first, let me tell you a little story. There was a girl I knew, not well. You probably heard me tell the story before, but you've heard me tell it from the other end, telling it from the aspect of my cousin, who was every bit the antagonist of the story. He was until he wasn't. When we were in high school, for the brief amount of time that we had to actually ride the school bus to school, I know, hard to think, is archaic practice. Oh, we had a habit, routine, penchant to do back then what was called the dozens. Roast sessions is what they call it now. We would roast each other, usually, but other people could come into play. You laughing a little bit too hard, get 'em. You have something to say, get 'em. Oh, you think you funny, get 'em. Now, there's one day that me and my cousin were going in on a little roast session, and there was this one little girl. She got off the bus like like a stop or two before us. We were roasting, and I was on an epic run, and I was tearing my cousin a new one. And we looked up, and she, who was always very quiet, very demure, she was laughing. And my cousin, he didn't find that funny one bit. So he starts roasting her. Now, she's an innocent bystander in this. She absolutely caught a stray. Well, at some point, he crosses the line. I don't know what it was that he said that it crossed the line, but she had this look in her eyes. The following day, we're getting on the bus, no problem. She didn't say a word. We're getting off the bus, and it's just one of those things. I was getting off the bus, and I looked down at her seat because I kind of felt sorry for her. I didn't really bother other people. My cousin was an ass. He would go after anybody, especially if he's getting roasted. I looked down at her seat, and just something was off. We're getting off the bus, and for some reason, she stands up and gets off the bus. Now, her bus stop was a couple steps ago. However, where we got off the bus was the corner store. So maybe she's going to the store. So me and my cousin still cutting it up. I'm behind him. He's in front of me. We still cutting it up. He's turning around looking at me. We still, going at it, talking about whatever. When we get to the steps, the front steps of the bus, she's standing out at the bottom of the steps. And he's looking at her like, what? She goes in her pocket, whips out a small can of lighter fluid, and just starts spraying it on him. And he's pissed. He's like, what the hell? I don't think he realized it was lighter fluid. It's one of those things where, kind of picks up fast, like, oh, shit. Then she goes in her pocket and pulls out a lighter. And I'm like, cuz she got a lighter. And my cousin, now, his big ass, now we in high school, and this is senior year. Senior year, because I had just moved back to town. I didn't have a car yet. And on this day, our little buddy, Tony, who usually, we rode with Tony every day, he was sick or something, so we had to ride the bus. Man, my cousin was every bit of 300 plus. He was a lineman on the football team. When I say he tackled her, he went at her with all the ferocity. It looked like Lawrence Taylor. It looked like Goldberg had just speared her through the thing. And the one thing that I've always said, even when I started teaching, was it's one thing about having compassion, but don't mistake people's kindness for a weakness. Hello, Governor. This is Rakai Steed, Newt from the Ville. Again, we're going to talk about Doctor Who, Season 9, Episode 2, The Witch is Familiar. I had to think about that for a second. Now, in this particular episode, it is a continuation of the last episode, The Magician's Apprentice. I'm not going to do a very long recap before we get into the quotes in my personal story, my personal thoughts. Clara and Missy are outside of Dalek City. They have the little vortex manipulators on their wrists, but they rig them to make it seem like they disappeared or they died when the Daleks attack. There's a huge explosion. They disappear into the sewers. Now, the thing is, the sewers are filled with insane Daleks who are basically disintegrating or whatever, and their casing is still down there. They are able to trick a Dalek in the sewer, and somehow Missy convinces Clara to get inside the casing of a Dalek. But the thing is, when the Dalek is inside, because the Dalek is a living organism, when it's inside, everything it says is either one of two sentences. It's very simple. It's, I am a Dalek, or exterminate. So anytime you say something that does not represent one of those two statements, if you start saying, no, my name is Rakai Steed, I am a Dalek. If you're saying, no, please help me, exterminate. You have to say things that are within a certain parameter of the Daleks. This freaks out Clara, and of course, Missy dips on her. The doctor can feel it. He knows that Clara's not dead. He's confronting Davros. Davros has given him this long story about helping him, and calling Sarf knocks the doctor out. When the doctor wakes back up, he's now attached to some cables which are connected to the life force of Davros, but not only that, it's connected to every Dalek on the planet, because that's how Davros stays in control of them. Davros tries to kill the doctor. The doctor feels some compassion for Davros, and I think he feels bad for when he abandoned him as a little boy. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna give you just a little bit, just a little taste, just a little sip of this life regeneration force, so that you don't die in absolute pain. But that was Davros's whole plan the whole time, to steal the life force of the doctor. Here's the thing though. The doctor knew that. He knew that you can't trust Davros. Davros, there's no way that he is just, I'm feeling bad, just help me out, I just don't want to die in pain. No, he knew. He was 10 steps ahead. And so the thing is, when he regenerated Davros and the Daleks, he regenerated all of them, which means all of the insane Daleks who are down in the sewer too, they're now regenerated, and they come up seeking revenge. And there's a full-on war with Dalek on Dalek. Now say that on the evening news. Dalek on Dalek war, with the insane ones seemingly winning. But now that all the Daleks have been hit off with a little bit of this regeneration juice from the doctor, they're now not just simple Daleks anymore, because now they have a little bit of Time Lord in them as well, and they become new hybrid forms of the Daleks. Missy shows up. She's trying to get the doctor away. They run into Clara. In the hallway. The doctor is ready to kill it, And Missy even says, this is the one that killed Clara. Kill it. Hurry up. Fast. Do it. But Doctor senses something is off. And the Dalek asks for mercy. The Doctor flips out. He's like, how are you able to do that? No Dalek can say but one of two things. How are you able to do that? He ends up opening the shell and seeing that's Clara outside. He sees what Missy just tried to do, tried to get him to kill Clara. He tells her she better run. She runs off. She gets cornered by some Daleks, but she said, hold up. I got a great idea. And the Doctor figures out what he needs to do to get a Dalek to even be capable of saying the word mercy. And that is, he goes back to when he abandoned Davros and uses a Dalek gun to take out all the hand mines and escorts Davros to safety. But Davros asked him, what side do I fight on in the war? And the Doctor's like, listen, whatever side you feel like, just make sure that you are capable of mercy. You know that I love my quotes. So I have two. One is by the Dalai Lama, and he says, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. The second one is by Daniel Goldman, and he says, true compassion means not only feeling another's pain, but being so moved as to help relieve it. I'm calling this media therapy deep dive compassion to a fault. You know, in watching this particular episode, I think it's interesting to show that Davros played on the Doctor's compassion. We all know, we've seen enough episodes now to know that the Doctor's not a good guy. He's great. He's capable of great things, but that doesn't make him a good guy. And a lot of people get stuck on that. You think that people who commit, who do great things are great people, and sometimes there's nothing farther than truth. Sometimes the most magnanimous, greatest things that have been done on earth were achieved by some of the worst damn people. It happens. For whatever reason, if you deem someone to be a bad person, this person's a murderer, this person's a thief, this person's a dope dealer, doesn't mean that if a life is on the line, they can't run into a burning building and save a child, save an old lady. You know, a lot of times you have a hard time wrapping your minds around it. It's like, how can you do, but you do this? Those two things are not mutual. They don't have to be. Sometimes there are people who you probably consider a good person, a philanthropic, humanitarian, who'll walk past a homeless person, wouldn't spit on them if they're on fire, who'll see a family trapped in a car, need some help. Keep on going. Not my business. Happens. Those two things don't always go together. But the one thing Davros did know is that the Doctor has compassion for people. Specifically Earth people, but he has compassion for all other beings. That's why he took on the moniker of the Doctor, because he truly wants to help. Unfortunately, sometimes the way he goes about it, he gonna leave a trail of bodies behind him. There shall be sacrifices. But he is honestly trying to do the right thing as often as he can. But what happens when you mistake someone's kindness for weakness? Did Davros underestimate the Doctor? Maybe. Or maybe he overestimated himself and his part in a little ploy that he was going with. That's the thing about, dealing with someone who's as clever as a Doctor. You figure you got it all figured out. And even when Davros and Colony Sarf made their move, they're like, check. But if you know anything about chess, check is not the end of the game. Checkmate is. A lot of people in your life will move on you because they think that your weakness is just that weakness. We don't value compassion. We don't value empathy in this country. I don't know about the world, but I know in America, we don't value that. We value money and power. Now you might say no, because everyone needs money. Regardless of who you are, you need money to pay your bills, to keep food in your bellies, to keep a roof over your head, to keep the lights on, whatever. But some people covet money. And not only in coveting money, you covet the power that a certain amount of money can bring, whether it's the amount of money or the perception of money can bring. Compassion is a sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering and misfortunes of others. And we have all sorts of churches and organizations that are concerned about the suffering and pity of others. And some of us are as well. But that doesn't mean that we are really concerned about compassion. Because compassion really means that you suffer together. If you don't have anything to eat and I have a full plate, compassion would mean that I share my plate with you. And now you got half a plate of food and I got half a plate of food. Neither one of us may get full, but we suffer together. And that way we're both better off, even though if we didn't get completely full, completely whole. Now, do you feel, and I'm not going to say what the numbers are, I don't know what the numbers are. Do you feel that you or the people that you know would share your plate of food? Now, a lot of times in your mind, you might want to say, yes, I absolutely would. I'm compassionate. I have empathy. I would do for other people, but would you only do it if it's someone that you knew? Family member, friend. You have no problem doing it then. Would you do it for a complete stranger? Now, I'm not talking about one of those weekends where you chose to go to Salvation Army or the soup kitchen or the women's shelter and like, you know what, I'm going to do a good deed. I do 2 of them a year, and this is my year. Would you do it for someone you knew was lying to you? Because that's what the doctor did here. He did it for someone he knew was lying to him. Would you still do it? Is it your place to, the whole, we listen and we don't judge. Would you listen to what they're saying and then still do it? Even though in your mind you've already judged them? I know he's lying. I ain't doing that. The story I told at the beginning, you've heard me tell that story before. And the problem with that story was my cousin was wrong. Was he wrong for joking on a little girl? Yeah, maybe. He got offended because she laughed too loud when I was cooking his ass. Roasting that boy. But he mistaked her kindness for weakness. And when he went in on her, I was wrong because I didn't stop him. My partners was wrong. We didn't stop him. We even let out some laughs. And we aided to that. It's lucky. She could have, squirted a little bit on my way. Oh, yeah, I seen your ass laughing too. But at the end, how does that make her any better than my cousin? He told jokes on her. She tried to shish kebab. She tried to roast my cousin's ass in the other way with actual fire. Neither one of them are right. You have to look out for your fellow man, and looking out for them actually means more than just looking. Because one day You could be the person who's in need of some compassion. And you could be the person whose kindness is looked at as a weakness. This is Rakai Steed, new from the Ville. Make sure that you like, share this as much as possible. Leave me some comments. Have you had these types of situations where someone looked at your kindness as a weakness? Have you been able to share, actually have compassion towards other people outside of your family or people that you knew? And if for some reason you haven't subscribed, listen, I'm not going to hold it against you. You didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. However, now you do. Hit the button and subscribe. Every time I do one of these, I make sure that I use this. But as the whole point of this, make sure that you always use this.